All right, well, let's start with your why for competing in Hyrox or anything else that you do. What's your why for these things?
It's a great question. And, a lot of people will sign up for competitions, races, events because they say they are competitive people and they want to compete against other people to be the best or be better than someone else. And that is not my why. That is not why I do these things. I want to see where my full potential is at. I want to achieve my full potential in life. And when I was younger, I thought there was a ceiling for what I could do and that I would never go above that ceiling. And what I learned over these years and as I've gotten older is that nothing is unbelievable and that with hard work, true hard work, you can accomplish anything you want. I used to say that I was not a runner and I would never run a marathon. And then I ran a marathon and I said I would never be able to run a sub 3 hour marathon. And I trained for it and I failed. And I trained for it again and I did it. And I realized that there is nothing that is unbelievable. And now my goal with fitness, with these competitions, with these races, the things that I sign up for is I want to push my mind and body to see what it is capable of, not to compete against someone else, not to be better than anyone else, but to be the best version of me.
Love it. What's the why now with Hyrox? Like I know you've done a lot and you've obviously got a lot of hybrid fitness in your background, but why now for Hyrox? Is there a specific reason?
To be honest, it kind of fell into my lap or fell into my life. Um, the last couple of years were focused on endurance events, triathlon, Ironman, marathons. This last December, I ran the California International Marathon. My goal was sub 2:45, and I ended up running 2:39, 2 hours 39 minutes. And naturally after that, I thought another marathon was going to be on my calendar going into marathon season this year. But I wanted something different. You know, I I knew the I knew and know the playbook for the marathon, and I know what I have to do to run a faster marathon. And that's exciting. Like next year, I will go for a big marathon PR, and I'm already itching to get back into marathon prep because I want to do it bigger and better than I did previously. But I wasn't super excited to jump back into a marathon of prep this year and right now. And I knew if I wasn't personally excited to do it, um, I would still put out a massive effort and I would go all in, but I wanted to make sure that the energy and the passion was there. And I was itching to be a student again. I
Mhm.
was curious to try something new, be humbled, learn, expand my knowledge and experience in this space, which is fitness. And one of the guys that works here at BPN with us, Simon, he also is part-time BPN barber and he cuts a lot of our hair. And he was cutting my hair one day a few months ago, and he's competed in a few Hyrox events. And we're just talking as he cut my hair, and he's telling me how, my background in strength and my background in endurance would really play to a benefit with Hyrox. And he's breaking down what Hyrox is and the way of training. And I've heard of it before this moment, but I didn't really understand what it was. And I didn't spend the time, I didn't do the due diligence to truly find out what Hyrox was and what it took to train for it. And as Simon was breaking down what the training looked like, what the competition looked like, what the space is evolving and becoming, by the end of the time he was cutting my hair, I was signed up for Hyrox Dallas. And after I commit to something, I'm all in. And that's all it takes. Is like once I say go, it's go. And that's how I kind of jumped into it. And I've been loving it. Absolutely loving this prep. I'm a student again. I'm being humbled. It's challenging. It's fun. It's different.
Good. So someone asked me actually how I thought you would do, and like we've seen like well-known CrossFitters and so on come into the space and do okay, and but I felt from what I've seen of you, like you have gone all in, whereas like maybe some other CrossFitters and people from other sport haven't necessarily gone all in. But the vibe I get from you is like you have been, and you've got this like whatever it is, 12-week, 16-week training block. So I think it's quite exciting to see what you can do with that sort of commitment to it. Um, you're enjoying the training then? Like, is there anything you found particularly hard so far?
Well, to kind of caveat off what you just said, I don't dip my toe in anything. It's, I'll think about something for a while that I want to pursue or try, and I'll study it, I'll talk to people, I'll learn, I'll explore that curiosity. And then once I decide I'm going to do something, once I commit, it's not dipping a toe in, it's jumping in the deep end and just like submerging myself in everything. So like the podcasts I'm listening to right now are all about Hyrox training. I'm studying um, competition and styles of training, and it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun. And I think what's most fun about it is I love to strength train. I love to run. And I've been doing that for years and years and years. But it's kind of just shifting the approach to both of those and layering on this intensity and aerobic capacity, aerobic threshold training that has made things really interesting and unique. So I've been enjoying every part of it so far. I mean, even if I don't ever do a Hyrox again, I would keep training this way because it's not only enjoyable, but I see and like experience the benefits that come from this style of training.
Is there anything that has shocked you about it? Like you said, you've always trained for strength and endurance. Is it as like bringing the two together shocked you in any way?
I won't say shocked. If anything, I mean, I would say right now, this is overall probably the best shape I've ever been in my life because there's been periods of time where I've gone all in on strength and aesthetics, and I've maintained my endurance training, but it was never the priority and it wasn't as strong. And then there's been periods in my life in training where endurance has been the priority in like a marathon training block, for example. And then my strength training is just a supplement too. So I lose strength, I lose size, but endurance builds. With this style of training right now for Hyrox Dallas, my strength training is still pretty significant. My endurance training, my running is still very significant. And then I'm adding in these Hyrox circuits about 2 to maybe 3 times a week. But what I'm noticing is that with all this additional aerobic conditioning, my running is getting significantly better while I'm still holding this level of strength and conditioning in size. I mean, I went for a workout 2 days ago, and it was a 10.5 mile workout. It was 2 mile warm up, 1 mile hard, 1 mile easy, 1 mile hard, 1 mile easy, 1 mile hard, 1 mile easy, 1 mile hard, mile and a half cool down. And I was just feeling it out, seeing what those 1 mile hards would be like. And I was holding 545, and I was holding 545 consistently with not a great effort put out. And what I'm also finding is with some of these circuits, when I'm doing intervals on the ergs, for example, I'm able to hold larger efforts at faster paces and recover more efficiently in between those intervals. So all that to say is, as fitness is built the last couple of weeks and months, as I've dove into this training block, I'm seeing fitness build, but building on all levels of strength, conditioning, running, like I haven't experienced this significant lift in all things fitness in quite some time, if ever.
Nice, nice. I guess you're saying it feels like you're not compromising on a specific area of fitness, and if anything, like all areas are benefiting.
Right. And
Yeah.
what's also fun is I noticed when I've gotten into marathon training blocks in the past, I've tried to lose some size and strength
Mm-hmm.
to run faster, obviously. With this training block, I'm not trying to lose size and strength. I'm trying to maintain that. So my caloric intake is higher than it was in a marathon training block. And just that additional fuel
Mm-hmm.
to maintain and then just fulfill my energy requirements has allowed me to maintain size, maintain strength, but also just propel me in some of these big training sessions.
Yeah. What do you weigh? Can I ask?
Yeah, I mean, in the morning, I'm between 198 and 200 pounds. By the end of the day, I'm 205 pretty consistently. So I average around 200 pounds, I guess you could say,
Okay.
right
And you
now.
and you think you'll race around that sort of weight in Dallas?
Yeah, I don't intend to try to lose any weight. Like I'd say, over these next couple weeks, I'll ramp up training a little bit more before we go into a taper. So I could expect my weight maybe to get down to 195 at the lowest, but 195 is pretty comfortable for me. Like when I ran California International Marathon in December, I was roughly 195 pounds.
Okay. Okay. It's a conversation that comes up a lot on this podcast actually, and it's rarely like anyone's ever said to me, I lost weight, to try and run faster, and it worked out well for me. It's not a conversation I think that plays out necessarily in this sport a huge amount.
Yeah, I think it's a strategy that a lot of people assume would work for them, but when it comes down to it, I think it's a risky
Mm.
strategy to play because as you underfuel to try to get the advantage of being faster at a lighter weight, you're not recovering. You can't get, the effectiveness of the training sessions as you get closer to the event. I just think it's risky business.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure you've been asked this a million times, but do you have a goal for Dallas in terms of your
Ah,
time?
I knew you were going to ask it. Uh, I do, but I'm not putting it out into existence yet. I'm still building fitness into Dallas, and I'd say I probably have another solid 6 weeks of prep yet before we start decreasing some of the volume and the intensity. So there's a goal time that I want to go for, but I'm not going to put that out there yet. I uh I would rather my work show than tell.
Okay, that's fair
Yeah.
enough. Have you followed like the elite side of the sport much, like the elite 15, and do you know what sort of times are required to get into that and everything like that? You're aware of all that?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've been following as I was telling you before we started recording, I've been listening to your podcast as well as RMR as
Mm-hmm.
I've dove into Hyrox prep and just listening to Ryan, Rich, Megan, yourself, some of the athletes you interview. I'm aware of the competitive times and what goes into the training, what goes into the event. But I'm also aware that like this will be my first Hyrox. So it's also going to be like a learning experience for the logistical components of the race and just getting my bearings straight. And I kind of see this like this is my first one. Let me go out there, let me learn, let me experience. And then when I go into my follow-up or second high rocks, uh, I'll have a better understanding of, learning lessons from the first, as well as just the structure of all the different components of race day, competition day.
Yeah. Do you like you've got a huge social following on Instagram, YouTube, wherever else? Like, do you feel a pressure when you do something like this to turn up and do well? Like, is there a pressure on you for that?
100%.
Yeah.
Um, that's what makes it fun though at the same time. I mean, when I put that goal out there, that is pressure, that is accountability from a few different angles. It's pressure on me to perform as an individual. There's pressure on me as the leader of my business to perform for my team and the people and the families that it impacts that work with and alongside of me. But then it's also an accountability function, responsibility, and pressure to show people when you commit to something and you set this goal, you just don't walk through it. You don't just set a goal and then show up and hope and wish for the best. You put in the work, like you endure the process. So, like, that's when I say I don't just dip my toe in the water. I go all in because I want to show people when you go all in, this is what can happen. This is the progress you can make. This is the better that you can achieve. So I definitely feel the pressure, but it's great because it holds me accountable and it makes me push really, really hard every day.
Yeah. You you've got like this go one more ethos. Um, can you I sort of tell us a bit about that? And are you like do you apply that to all of your training sessions? And then also like a follow up question. I'm sorry, I've hit you with three questions in one here, but like when you know there's this talk maybe about like balancing like not overtraining, doing enough, go one more. How do you think about that in your training sessions? How do you like go one more, do enough, go all in, but then also not overtrain? You know, have some balance, not find yourself permanently fatigued. How do
Yeah.
you think about that?
Go on more has evolved for me over the years. So the origin story of Go on More is in 2018, I was training for my first marathon. It was the Austin Marathon, and I ended up running 3 hours, 57 minutes at that marathon. I was like 225, 230 pounds. I was living downtown Austin at the time, and I was on a training run this one day, and there was this beautiful 10-mile loop around downtown Austin, Lady Bird Lake, my favorite place to run. One of my favorite places to run in the entire world that I've at least experienced. And I'm on this training run one day, and I was supposed to run 18 miles. I'm 10 miles in, my legs are tired. I didn't want to keep running. I just was extremely exhausted. So at 10 miles, I stop running and I start walking back to the house that my now wife, but fiance at the time were renting. And as I'm walking back to the house, I'm thinking, man, if I quit on this run, what else will I quit on in my life? What does it say about my character? Will I quit on my business? Will I quit on my relationships? Like, what else will I quit on? The way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So as I'm thinking about this, I turn around, I walk back to the trail. I tell myself I'm going to finish that run for the day. I get to mile 18 and I run one more mile. I go 19 miles instead of 18. And I come back to our house, take my hat off, and under the bill of my hat, I write one more. I took a photo of it, posted it on social media, and it goes nuts. All of the people that followed me started writing one more under the bill of their hat and then taking a photo of it and posting it online. So I realized I struck a nerve in a lot of people. And that eventually evolved into go one more. And then we trademarked it. It became a massive part of our brand. I got it tattooed on my arm, and now thousands of other people have it tattooed on their arm. And I used to think that go one more was just an action. It's just do one more thing, run one more mile, train one more hour, read one more chapter, work one more, night on your business to get it to where you want it to be. And a few years ago, I realized that go one more is not just an action, but it's an outcome. And what I mean by that is like, how do you go one more in your life? And that's by making very clear and intentional choices. There is a time to go one more. Like literally, there's a time in training where you push beyond what you think is your limit and you go to the extremes. And that stress creates adaptation and growth. But sometimes going more is making the intentional choice not to train, to take a rest day so that you can keep making progress. You can experience go one more as an outcome as opposed to just an action. So there's times in workouts, in training, where I know when to really push.
Mm-hmm.
And when that quality session is there and you're trying to create this massive adaptation that stimulates growth. But you don't do that every day. You don't do that every workout. Because if you did, you weren't actually making progress and you don't experience going more. It's much more applicable than just training as well. I mean, you can apply it to business, you can apply it to your relationships, you can apply it to your work, your entire life as a whole. Go one more. The way you achieve that is by intentional choices, very deliberate and intentional choices. So it's not just doing more of something, but it's an outcome that you experience and achieve by the choices that you make.
Love it. I I was going to ask you about like your mindset during a tough event. So during, some of your Hyrox training sessions, like marathons, everything else that you've done, where does your mind go during those moments? Is it like you think of this, go one more, or do you think of something else? Do you think of your family? What do you think of to sort of push you on?
No, I really don't think of anything except for experiencing my feelings in the moment. I think some people like to distract themselves from what they're feeling. So they'll put on like this certain song, which I've done in the past. I mean, there's been times like there's a certain song like or a headspace that I want to go to pull myself out of that situation and distract myself from the feelings that I'm feeling in that moment. But now I want to feel that. I want to embrace every every sensation of what I'm experiencing and just sit in it. And I like to think of the term controlled discomfort because in a lot of these workouts, I think the thought process is go hard, go fast as quickly as possible. But as we know, with any of these endurance races, especially as long as a marathon is, or even a Hyrox event, if you go out too hard, too fast, you might not make it to the end. Or if you do, your paces are so slow that your overall time is destroyed. So it's finding this place of controlled discomfort where you can hold this big effort for a sustained period of time. And that's what I'm just trying to manage the entire time. I'm managing my energy output. I'm managing fatigue. I'm trying to hold this red line without going over it. And that's just a level of awareness that you have to have. And if you try to distract yourself from those feelings, you can't control that controlled discomfort. It's
Mhm.
just it's chaotic. So when I'm in these big workouts, I'm thinking, where's my heart rate? How's my breathing? How's my pace? Where's my effort? Can I hold this? How long can I hold this? And it's just managing that the entire way through. And if it's a really big workout, sometimes I just zone out and I stop even thinking about the workout that I'm in because I'm holding a relatively lower effort, heart rate's lower, and I'm just settling in and putting in the work. But if the effort is higher, the workout is shorter in duration, and I'm putting out this big pace. Well, I'm more aware then, I'm more in it, and I'm controlling all these different variables. So I just like to be aware of what I'm experiencing based off the type of workout it is and what I'm trying to achieve in that moment.
I like that. I like that. No one's ever really put it like that when I put that question out here before. I've written an article about like perception of fatigue, and a large amount of fatigue is your interpretation of how you're feeling during the race, as opposed to like whether you are tired or not. It's like your interpretation of it. It feels like your your mindset is around like embracing the pain to a certain extent rather than like trying to be fearful of it. Um, and that benefits you during the race.
Yeah, I mean, I even think back to this last marathon I was in, and the first couple miles in, I'm running alongside or even passing people who are running uncontrolled. And, the first couple miles into a 26.2 mile race, I could tell they were breathing really heavily. Their heart rate was all over the place. They were trying to distract themselves from what they were feeling. They weren't focused. And those people quickly fell off within a few different miles because they weren't aware of the effort they were putting out. And sometimes that's mental. You work yourself up, your breathing becomes uncontrolled. With that, your effort is higher than it needs to be. Even if you're in really good shape, fitness, conditioning. So it's just staying calm, collective, and being aware of the effort you're putting out, but just embracing it. Be in it. Don't try to run away from it. Be in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, love that. I changing the topic a little. I've heard you talk about on another podcast episode. Like you obviously you run a successful business. You're very busy. You're a dad, um, and you only get 6 hours a night sleep on
If
average.
that, if that.
If that. But you train, you work hard. Do you feel like um, sleep? If people are going out there saying like you need 8 hours sleep to be able to perform at a high level, presumably like you disagree with that because you're proving that wrong to some extent. But do you feel like that's not necessarily true? Like you can get 6 hours a night and still perform well.
I really do think it depends on the individual. I'm a huge advocate and believer in sleep. And if I could get 8 hours of sleep a night, I 100% would. But I'm the CEO of my business. We have 40 full-time employees here at our HQ in Austin, Texas. I'm a content creator. I have a 2-year-old at home. I have a 7-week-old son at home, and I'm married. It's like there's a lot going on in my life right now, and this is just the season and chapter that I'm in. And in order for me to get all the things that I want to get done in a day, the one place that I am willing to sacrifice is sleep because I need to knock on a run in the morning and I want to run and be home before my daughter wakes up and my family wakes up. So that's what I do. I wake up at 4:30 a.m. I'm running by 5. I'm back by 6:30 and I'm back before my wife, son, and daughter are up. So I can make breakfast, and as soon as my breakfast is done, the family's waking up and I can spend time with them before I go into the office at 9. And then I'm working with my team here in the office, and I hit my second training session in the afternoon before getting home to have dinner with my family and spend a few hours with them before we do our nighttime routine. And that's my day 95% of the time. And it just so happens that I don't get 8 hours of sleep. But I'm not going to sit here and say like sleep does not matter because I think it really does matter. But it's just the chapter and season I'm in right now that I'm not getting as much as I necessarily would like. And that's okay because I have priorities that I need and want to show up for.
Mhm. Do you have any other recovery? Like if you think of sleep as a recovery strategy, do you do anything else? Do you using compression boots, ice baths, anything like that you find helpful?
Sauna. I'm a big believer in the sauna. I love the sauna. Um, I'll use compression boots occasionally if my lower body is pretty taxed and I have a big workout the next day. Um, Even though I don't get as much quantity of sleep I'd say my sleep quality is really good. I don't have
Mhm.
any issue falling asleep. One of the things that we do have on our bed is this machine that reduces the temperature of our bed at night, and I found that extremely beneficial. Me and my wife both are big fans of it. There's a few different companies that make machines. Uh, One is the Chili Sleep Pad, for example. Another one is Sleep 8, but it's like this cover that goes over your mattress, and then it connects to a water tank on the side of your bed, and it can reduce the temperature of your mattress at night. And we've been using one of these machines from different companies over the last couple of years, and that's made a huge difference in our sleep quality. So I'm a big fan of that. If you can't get the quantity, get the quality, and then just diet and nutrition. Like my diet is dialed in, like dialed in, where I'm hitting the calories I need. I'm hitting my macronutrient ratios that I need. Quality of food is there. Meal timing is there. Like that is one variable that I know I am in control of, and I'm going to control it because of the impact it makes on my training, on my recovery. I'm a huge just fan, advocate, and practicer of nutrition.
What is your daily caloric intake out of interest?
I mean, right now, at a minimum, it's 4,000 calories.
Uh-huh.
And if I have a big training session that day or even the next day, I'll adjust my calories, primarily carbohydrates, to increase to support the demands that my body needs. Like roughly right now, I'm consuming on average 225 to 250 grams of protein a day, about 125 grams of fat, and 450-ish grams of carbs. And that might change based off of training. Like tomorrow morning, I'm doing a 16-mile run. Uh, Today, I'll kind of add some more carbs in to support that, and then tomorrow I'll add more carbs in for recovery. But my diet is very consistent, and I know that makes a huge difference. I'm fueling my energy needs, but then I'll also optimize recovery post workout.
Okay. You mentioned you got your 16-mile run tomorrow. Can you tell us, like high level, what your training week structure looks like, and what your sort of running week looks like? Are you doing like 80% long slow runs and then some intervals? What does that look like across a week as well?
Yeah. You know, over the prep, it's when I look at a prep, I look at it in terms of a build where training volume and intensity, say week one, starts at one point. And if we track the volume intensity of our training, we want it to build over time. There's this positive correlation between time and volume. And we have some deload weeks built in. And then we taper in about 7 to 10 days prior to an event where we reduce overall volume and intensity a little bit. And we shed that fatigue, and then we show up race day in peak performance. And that's the way I view all these preps that I do. So that's like the big overarching theme of the structure. I'm also I love to auto regulate my training. So I'll go into a week knowing roughly what I want to do, but depending on how my body feels, my recovery, just things going on in my life, I will move training sessions around or I will adjust workouts based off of how I'm feeling. So if I have like a 12-mile workout scheduled for a Wednesday morning, for example, but I wake up Wednesday morning feeling trash in this first 2-mile warm up, I don't feel solid. I'm probably not going to do that 12-mile workout. I might run 12 miles, but it's going to be an easier pace. And I'm not going to hit the intervals or the tempo miles that I was planning on doing. So I love auto regulation. Those
Mhm.
are some things I wanted to share prior to. A typical week right now is running wise, 6 runs a week, and I'm averaging 55 to 65 miles a week right now. And 6 runs, four of those are just easy runs between 8 and 10 miles. And then once a week, I will do either a track workout at critical velocity intervals, or I will do a tempo workout. So some different segments of faster paced miles with some recovery miles in between. And then on the weekends, I have my long run. So in the beginning of prep, my long run started at 12 miles, and I'm kind of just increasing mileage slowly on those long runs. So tomorrow, 16-mile run, that will be the longest long run of this prep so far. Not sure if I'm going to go any higher than that, but I really do enjoy these long runs on the weekends. So that's kind of running wise. I love my weekly speed workouts. I see great benefit from it. And that 55 to 65 miles per week, that's not including the running that I'm doing in any of my Hyrox focus
Mm-hmm.
circuits. Strength training is roughly 4 strength workouts per week. And this is focused on like a split of hypertrophy, strength, and power output. So like one day we'll focus on push, primarily chest, triceps. One day will be a pull focus, back, biceps. Another day is lower body strength. And then I'll have like a fun hypertrophy day, which is shoulders, core, arm. I'm hitting a little bit of core, direct core work every strength workout. And then I'll do 2 Hyrox workouts per week. So 6 days a week, I'm training twice a day. And those Hyrox focused workouts, uh, they range. Like they're always a little different. And there's always a very clear purpose and intent of each one of those workouts. Sometimes it's focused on just one of the ergs. Sometimes it's a bigger Hyrox race simulation. Uh, some of those are focused on compromised running. So 1K runs on like the assault runner with some compromised movements throughout, like burpee broad jumps or wall balls, sled pushes. So I'm introducing some of the different functional movements of Hyrox into these workouts, uh, really with like the intent of building aerobic conditioning and then also focused on compromised running. And that's where I really put out these big, massive efforts. These workouts started in the beginning of prep being like 20, 25, 30 minutes. And now they're getting up to 60 to 90 minutes for some of these big sessions. Like today, I spent an hour this afternoon, and the workout was 15 minutes of direct core work. And then I did intervals on the rower and the ski erg. So I did uh, 10 intervals on the rower, 500 meters each interval with 60 seconds rest in between each. And I did the same thing on the ski erg. Uh, 10 intervals, 500 meters each, 60 seconds rest in between. The goal holding a big effort that I could sustain consistently throughout all 10 rounds.
Can I ask the paces that you held in those?
Yeah. On the row, I was holding 135 per
Nice.
500. And then on the ski erg, 148 per 500.
Okay. Nice. How did that feel?
I mean, they're bigger efforts. The row for me is a bigger effort than the ski. And I ran 8 miles this morning, ran 10 miles yesterday morning. So like legs were a little fatigued. I hit leg strength pretty big late last night. So like legs were feeling heavy going into the row. But I have found that those intervals on the ergs make a huge difference. Like huge, huge difference. When I first started doing those workouts in the beginning of prep, on the rower, for example, I want to say I was holding like a 144, 145, and I've shaved off 10 seconds per 500 uh, over these last maybe 8 weeks or so.
Nice. Have you done any testing or anything like that to determine pacing or progress in your running or anything else? Like, are you doing lactate threshold, VO2 max, anything like that?
You mean like actual like laboratory
Yeah,
testing?
yeah,
In this prep, I haven't. I've done lactate threshold testing before, uh, in some marathon preps, in some labs. I haven't done anything in this prep so far. It's all been more so like subjective data. I track all my workouts, I track all of my progress, and that's how I structure some of my workouts from week to week based off how I'm progressing and what splits I think I can hit. Um, so it's been more so like subjective data driven results as opposed to going into a lab and getting some of this work done.
okay. Is there anything? What are you most worried about in Hyrox? Is it a certain station, pacing, something like that?
If you would have asked me a few weeks ago, I probably would have said pacing. Um, but I did a workout 2 weeks ago and I did 6 out of the 8 stations. So the first 6 stations with 1K row, in the beginning of each one of those. And to be honest, compared to some of the other big sessions that I do, it felt like a lot less effort. I'm a big fan and advocate of like preparing for the event, but like not just to be able to complete the event, to compete in the event. So some of these big sessions that I'm doing was much more volume and intensity than those 6 stations that I did. That was a Hyrox sim. And it made me feel really comfortable in terms of pacing. So I was worried about pacing a couple weeks ago, but after doing that Hyrox sim, it's not really a concern of mine right now. Um, so like I won't say there's anything I'm really concerned with right now. It's just continuing to put in the work over these next couple weeks, learn, improve, keep building fitness, and then just race smart. I see so many people that they put in the work and then they blow up race day because they don't race smart. And I've been there. Like when I went out for my first sub 3 hour marathon attempt, I'll tell you when I towed the line at that marathon, I was not in sub 3 shape for my first attempt. And I ended up running 3 hours, 24 minutes. I missed my goal by 24 minutes. That's not a small miss. It's a massive miss. And I know when I towed that line, I wasn't in sub 3 shape. But when I towed the line, something came over my body and my mind. And I said, you know what? I might not be able to physically run sub 3 right now. But if I convince myself mentally that I can run sub 3, I can do it. I can do it. So I went out so hard and so fast at that marathon. And within the first 6 miles, I was drained. And I knew I was like, there's no way I can hold on for another 20 miles. And that was the race where I learned that endurance is just as much mental as it is physical, but you cannot mentally run faster than your body is conditioned and trained for a sustained amount of time and effort. So it's showing up and being smart about the race
Mm-hmm.
and trusting the training, trusting the process, having a game plan and sticking to that plan. And if within that race, I'm feeling a little froggy, I'm feeling a little bit better, throw down, let it
Yeah,
rip.
nice. Well, I'm excited to see what you can do. Um, there's a few questions that I like to finish up on this
Yep.
podcast. The first of which is, what's been your best sporting experience ever?
Man, I'm gonna have to say running Leadville 100.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've had a bunch of great experiences. It's a tie between that and this last marathon, but I'll go with Leadville 100. The Leadville 100 was my first ever ultra marathon, and to run 100 miles in the Rocky Mountains of Leadville, Colorado, starting at 10,000 feet of elevation and getting above 13,000 feet of elevation, and completely breaking my body off and pushing my body and my mind to the ultimate extremes while experiencing the most beautiful terrain with my team and an amazing crew, and then crossing that finish line, the emotional experience of that effort, that race, the history behind it. I don't know if anything has quite surpassed that experience for me.
The next question was going to be, what's your toughest sporting experience? Is it the same one?
I'd say so. I mean that was something that truly broke me off. After mile 62, I really couldn't breathe. So the last 38 miles, it was me wheezing, feeling like I was breathing through a straw because of what just the elevation did to my body. And I didn't sleep like 3 days after that race. It just damaged me beyond belief. So I would say that's probably uh, the most physically challenging event that I've done, sporting event yet.
It's interesting, isn't it, that the mindset of some people where it's like, it was my best sporting experience because it was one of the toughest sporting experiences.
I mean, one of the things that I believe in is when we do these hard things, we should do them with a goal. And that goal is much greater than a time or a place. Uh, but it's this unlock. And when I go into these races or these competitions and these preps, I always know I'm going to unlock some new compartment in my mind. And when I was talking to Courtney DeWalter on my podcast a few years ago, I asked her about the pain cave. And when she's in these big races and she's putting out this massive effort, like what does the pain cave mean and look like to her? And she talks about with each incremental race she does, she's kind of just like digging out, carving out this pain cave a little bit deeper, a little bit deeper, a little bit deeper. And as you dig out this pain cave a little bit deeper, you unlock parts of your mind that you wouldn't have unlocked without that experience. So it's almost being like a key collector with each race or competition or each hard thing that you sign up for and do. When you finish it and you achieve, you unlock this part of your mind, this new experience, this new perspective or thought process. What you get when you cross the finish line is a medal, yes, but I throw all those medals out. What I get is a key, and that key unlocks a new part of my mind that I wouldn't have been able to unlock without that experience. And all these experiences we have in life provide us with this key to unlock a new compartment so we can grow, improve, get better. But if you're just doing these races and these competitions to have a nice wall in your house that's filled with medals and bibs and awards, and you're not getting anything else out of it, I personally think that's wasteful and empty. And there's much more to gain from these experiences than a piece of metal or a piece of paper.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Maybe this is too early to answer, but what's the best piece of advice someone's given you or you've discovered while training for Hyrox?
It's probably from uh, the RMR podcast. I've heard Meg and Ryan and Rich talk about this a lot, but and I made this mistake right when I first got started. I thought training for Hyrox was just a bunch of these Hyrox workouts and a bunch of circuits. And it's like Hyrox circuit, 5, 6 days a week, and that's it. And what I've realized since I started is I don't think there's one perfect way to train for this competition. There's a bunch of different methods you can take and apply. And you need your strength training, you need your running, and then you need to layer on these Hyrox circuit workouts. And I think with each additional week that I train for this competition, even though I haven't done a competition yet, so I could be completely off base and incorrect and wrong, but I'm just realizing more and more and more that this is a running race.
Mhm.
It's a running race with obstacles. And the obstacles are these functional movements. And it's how fast can you run these 1Ks and recover in between these obstacles and hold consistent, strong paces throughout. That's the key, is what I'm finding right now.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. And then last question: if you could plant one idea or piece of advice in the mind of everyone listening, and it can be anything, what would it be?
Let's go one more. It's it's applying go one more to everything you do in your life and realizing that go one more is not just an action, but it's an outcome that you achieve and experience by intentional, life-changing choices.
Brilliant. Love it. Well, thank you for this. It's been fantastic. I'm glad we got to chat. I'm excited to see what you can do in Dallas. Good luck. Um, if people want to follow you, find out more about you, find out about your companies and so on, where should they go?
Yeah, I appreciate it, Greg. Um, so my company is Bear Performance Nutrition. It's bpnsups.com. And if you go on YouTube and just search Nick Bear, I've been documenting my life from 2014 up until today. And we have consistently been putting out content on YouTube that has documented my journey of starting the company, joining the military, training bodybuilding and powerlifting, evolving and transitioning into marathons, then Ironmans and triathlons. And we've been documenting this entire Hyrox prep as well over these last couple of weeks. So it's all on YouTube. And I host a weekly podcast, the Nick Bear Podcast, which can be found on Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube as well.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you. Anything else I should have asked you before we finish up?
No, it was great, Greg. I appreciate it. I've been loving the sport and everyone involved. And I guess like one message to leave uh, with the listeners is that I think we all have a responsibility and an opportunity to continue being students. And that's what I love about training and trying new things. This Hyrox prep, for example, this is new and different to me. And I think a lot of people assumed that I was going to come in and be like, I'm going to win this thing. No, I want to learn from people who are doing really well in the sport. I want to learn from people who have been there, done it, and I want to see what I can do, but also expand my knowledge and experience in fitness, in racing, in conditioning. And I think there's so many people to learn from who have been doing this sport for the last couple of years and where it's heading. And I think it's doing great things for the fitness industry as a whole, athletes, and a new style of training.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you. Good luck. And I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Greg.
See you, man.